Nearly 200 earthquakes were recorded in Yellowstone National Park in the past 2 weeks.
We end here tonight with a sleeping giant, an ancient super volcano.
As a hotbed of geothermal activity, Yellowstone National Park is no stranger to earthquake tremors and steamy eruptions. But in recent weeks, the park has seen an alarming rise in seismic activity, with hundreds of earthquakes rattling its geysers and thermal pools. Now, a Yellowstone official is issuing a serious warning as concerns mount. Could this be the beginning of a larger eruption? To get this answer, we will have to explore the simmering heart of Yellowstone and confront the unsettling prospect of a potential volcanic catastrophe. For over 11,000 years, Native Americans have called the Yellowstone region home. But it wasn't until the late 1860s that organized exploration began, with visits by mountain men marking the early 19th century. The park's management initially fell under the U.S. Department of the Interior, overseen by Columbus Delano. However, it was the U.S. Army that took charge from 1886 to 1916, managing Yellowstone for 3 decades. Then, in 1917, control shifted to the newly formed National Park Service, covering an expansive 3,468.4 square miles. Yellowstone National Park is a vast landscape of lakes, canyons, rivers, and mountains. Among its notable features is Yellowstone Lake, one of North America's largest high-elevation lakes, situated atop the Yellowstone caldera, the continent's largest supervolcano. Yellowstone's significance extends beyond its geological wonders. It serves as the heart of the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, one of the last remaining nearly intact ecosystems in the Earth's northern temperate zone. This vast expanse of wilderness supports a rich array of flora and fauna, from towering forests to elusive wildlife. In recognition of its ecological importance, Yellowstone was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1978. But the story of Yellowstone doesn't end with its natural beauty. The park boasts a rich human history, with hundreds of structures dotting its landscape, each bearing architectural and historical significance. Moreover, researchers have meticulously examined over 1,000 indigenous archaeological sites within its boundaries, shedding light on the ancient civilizations that once thrived in this remarkable region. But what lies beneath Yellowstone's serene surface? Among the park's inhabitants are hundreds of species of mammals, birds, fish, reptiles, and amphibians, including some facing the threat of extinction. The vast forests and grasslands provide a home to unique plants, adding to the park's ecological richness. Known as the largest and most renowned megafauna location in the contiguous United States, Yellowstone is home to iconic species such as grizzly bears, cougars, wolves, and free-ranging herds of bison and elk. Among them, the Yellowstone Park bison herd stands out as the oldest and largest public bison herd in the country. Yet, amidst this vibrant ecosystem, nature's power asserts itself. Forest fires, a natural occurrence, sweep through the park each year, shaping its landscapes in their wake. The devastating fires of 1988 engulfed nearly 1/3 of Yellowstone's expanse, leaving a profound mark on its terrain. Despite the challenges posed by such events, the park remains a haven for outdoor enthusiasts, offering a plethora of recreational activities year-round. From hiking and camping to boating and fishing, visitors can immerse themselves in the park's beauty and serenity. However, for the sake of this video, our focus shifts to Yellowstone's geothermal wonders, where the Earth's fiery heart pulses beneath the surface. These geothermal areas are scattered throughout Yellowstone National Park, boasting a mesmerizing array of geyser basins, hot springs, mud pots, and fumaroles. With an estimated 10,000 thermal features, Yellowstone is a hotbed of geothermal activity. A study completed in 2011 identified a total of 1,283 geysers in the park, with 465 of them active in an average year. These geysers are spread across 9 basins, with some smaller thermal areas hosting additional geysers. While iconic geysers like Old Faithful garner attention, the majority of Yellowstone's geysers are smaller, yet no less fascinating, often erupting to heights of only a few feet. This hydrothermal system, fueled by the park's ancient active caldera, provides the hot water that powers these geysers. As water from underground sources interacts with volcanic heat, it creates a spectacle of steam and bubbling pools, leaving behind mineral deposits such as sinter, geyserite, and travertine. But the geothermal wonders of Yellowstone are not just confined to its famous geysers. The park's diverse landscape harbors a multitude of thermal features, each with its unique characteristics and allure. From the colorful pools of the Grand Prismatic Spring to the bubbling cauldrons of the Norris Geyser Basin, visitors are treated to a kaleidoscope of natural marvels. Yet, beneath the surface, beauty lies a complex ecosystem shaped by the interplay of heat and water. Microorganisms thrive in the extreme conditions of Yellowstone's thermal pools, creating vibrant mats of bacteria and algae. These microscopic life forms not only add to the park's stunning visual appeal, but also play a crucial role in its ecological balance. The mesmerizing geothermal features of Yellowstone are not randomly scattered across the landscape, but are strategically located where the Earth's fiery energy converges with surface conditions. Geyser basins, where rainwater and snowmelt seep into the ground and encounter the Yellowstone hotspot's intense heat, are prime locations for these geological marvels to emerge. Nestled within flat-bottomed valleys between ancient lava flows and glacial moraines, these basins serve as the stage for spectacular eruptions of geysers, hot springs, and fumaroles. However, the geothermal wonders of Yellowstone are not confined to these expansive basins alone. Smaller thermal areas dot the landscape, marking the intersections of fault lines, circular fracture zones around the caldera, and slopes where excess groundwater collects. Each of these geological features offers a glimpse into the Earth's dynamic processes, where heat and water mingle to create a landscape unlike any other. At Yellowstone's high elevation, the average boiling temperature at geyser basins hovers around 199 degrees Fahrenheit, 93 degrees Celsius, a testament to the intense heat simmering beneath the surface. When the pressure builds and the conditions are just right, geysers like Steamboat Geyser unleash their fury, propelling scalding water and steam up to 390 feet into the air. Yet despite the searing temperatures within the geysers, the water cools significantly as it arcs through the air, ensuring that spectators and nearby boardwalks remain safe from harm. However, the allure of Yellowstone's geothermal wonders comes with its risks. The scalding temperatures of the water pose a danger to those who venture too close, prompting authorities to enforce strict safety measures. Visitors are urged to stay on designated boardwalks and trails, respecting the boundaries set by nature. Tragically, past incidents serve as grim reminders of the perils that lie beneath Yellowstone's serene surface, with several fatalities attributed to falls into hot springs. Prehistoric Native American artifacts discovered at Mammoth Hot Springs and other thermal areas hint at a deep connection between ancient peoples and the Earth's fiery heart. Some accounts even suggest that early inhabitants used the hot water from these geothermal features for bathing and cooking, harnessing the power of nature for their daily needs. But as the 19th century dawned, a new era of exploration unfolded, bringing with it tales of wonder and mystery. Father Pierre-Jean de Smet, upon encountering the awe-inspiring geysers, recounted the beliefs of the native peoples who saw them as the battlegrounds of infernal spirits locked in eternal combat. Even the famed Lewis and Clark expedition, venturing north of Yellowstone in 1806, encountered locals who shunned the caldera's depths, fearing the thunderous roars that echoed from within and the wrath of the spirits that dwelled there. Among the brave souls who dared to venture into this untamed wilderness was John Coulter, a member of the Lewis and Clark expedition, who, seeking adventure, set out alone into the heart of Yellowstone. His first-hand accounts of the geothermal features he encountered painted a picture of a landscape both mesmerizing and terrifying. A place where hot springs bubbled with sulfur and steam rose like smoke from industrial chimneys. Yet it was famed trapper Jim Bridger who perhaps best captured the essence of Yellowstone's geothermal wonders when he dubbed it the place where hell bubbled up. His words still echo through the ages. Far below the solid volcanic rock and sediment, buried within the very heart of the earth, lies a superheated brine, a salty concoction simmering at temperatures surpassing 400 Fahrenheit. This brine, trapped beneath immense pressure, acts as the lifeblood of the geothermal wonders that captivate visitors from around the globe. But its journey to the surface is not a solitary one. As the brine churns and boils in its subterranean cauldron, its intense heat begins to seep into the surrounding rock, conducting its fiery energy upwards. Through the fractured and porous labyrinth beneath the Yellowstone Plateau, this heat transfers to a layer of fresh groundwater, mingling and melding in a symphony of geological alchemy. Along the way, silica, that steadfast mineral of the Earth's crust, is dissolved and redeposited, forming a labyrinthine network of pressure-sealed conduits. But this is merely the beginning of a journey that spans millennia. As the superheated water breaches the surface, it unleashes its pent-up fury in a spectacle of steam and splendor. Geyserite and sinter, the silent witnesses to this primordial dance, bear testament to the inexorable march of time and the ceaseless power of nature. The Norris Geyser Basin in particular is like a hot pot bubbling with geothermal activity. It's also found in Yellowstone National Park, and it's known for being the most sizzling geyser basin there. See it as a hotspot where boiling water shoots up from the ground, creating a spectacle of steam and splashes. This basin sits near the northwest corner of the Yellowstone caldera, a giant volcanic crater close to Norris Junction. Now, what makes this place so special is that it sits right where three big faults meet: the Norris Mammoth Corridor, the Hebgen Lake Fault, and the ring fracture zone from when the Yellowstone caldera was born 640,000 years ago. These faults are like the nerve centers of the basin, making it super hot and active. Now and then, the Norris Geyser Basin goes through what you could call a big shakeup. It's like the basin suddenly wakes up and starts acting all wild for a few weeks. During these episodes, things get crazy. Water levels go up and down, the temperature swings, the colors change, and geysers start erupting in new ways. For example, back in 1985, there was this geyser called Pork Chop Geyser that just kept shooting out steam and water without stopping. But then, in 1989, it seemed like Pork Chop Geyser got a bit too excited and got itself clogged with silica, which is like a rock-forming material. This led to a big explosion, throwing rocks as far as 200 feet away. Fast forward to 2003, and a park ranger saw Pork Chop Geyser bubbling like crazy again, something it hadn't done since 1991. Things got even more intense later that year, with activity spiking up. It was so hot that parts of the back basin had to be closed off to keep people safe. In 2004, they had to change the boardwalk route to go around the danger zone and behind Pork Chop Geyser to keep everyone safe. Now, you might wonder what causes all this commotion. Well, it's like this. All the action in the Norris Geyser Basin is because of the meeting point of those three big faults I mentioned earlier. When they intersect, it's like a pressure cooker waiting to blow. And when you add in the ring fracture zone from the ancient volcanic eruption, it's like adding fuel to the fire. The hot water and steam trapped beneath the surface are just itching to break free, and sometimes they do spectacularly. You see, underneath the ground, there's a whole lot of heat going on. This steam builds up pressure. When the pressure gets too much, boom, an eruption happens. And because the Norris Geyser Basin is sitting right on top of all this geothermal activity, it's like a hotspot for these eruptions. But it's not just the heat that's causing all the fuss. The rocks beneath the surface play a big role too. You see, some of these rocks are rich in minerals like silica. When the hot water flows through these rocks, it picks up bits of silica along the way. Over time, these minerals can build up and clog the vents of geysers and hot springs, kind of like how gunk can clog up a drain. When that happens, the pressure builds up even more until pop, an explosion like the one that happened in Pork Chop Geyser happens. So, are the officials warning against another explosion? The answer is no. Yellowstone National Park is grappling with another menace. Earthquakes have become the order of the day. When we talk about earthquake activity in Yellowstone, the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory, or YVO for short, typically mentions that the area experiences between 1,500 to 2,500 earthquakes every year. These numbers are based on seismic activity spanning roughly the past 3 decades, from 1995 to the present day. But here's the twist. Yellowstone doesn't play by the rules of predictability. It's like a roller coaster ride, with its seismic activity fluctuating wildly from year to year. For instance, in 2017, it was a wild ride with a whopping 3,427 earthquakes shaking things up. Contrast that with 2011, where it was a bit quieter with only 708 events rumbling through the region. Now, Let's delve into why these earthquakes happen in the first place. Take the Earth's crust as a giant jigsaw puzzle, with pieces constantly shifting and moving against each other. Along the edges of these puzzle pieces, known as tectonic plates, earthquakes occur when stress builds up due to this movement. Yellowstone sits atop one of these hot spots, where the Earth's crust is under immense pressure from both the movement of these plates and volcanic activity bubbling below the surface. Eventually, this pressure becomes too much to bear, and the rock along fault lines gives way, releasing pent-up energy in the form of seismic waves. These seismic waves ripple outwards like the splash from a stone tossed into a pond, causing the ground to shake as they travel through the earth. Once they reach the surface, these waves can be felt by anyone nearby. Imagine standing on a shaky bridge as a train barrels past. It's that kind of jarring motion. Surface waves are especially disruptive, like invisible hands pushing and pulling at the ground. This movement can cause the ground to roll like waves in the ocean, crack open like a fault line in the desert, or shift vertically or horizontally like a sliding puzzle. It's a chaotic struggle that can wreak havoc on structures, especially since most buildings are designed to withstand horizontal motion, not the erratic jerking and shaking that earthquakes bring. It will surprise you to know that in Yellowstone, things are a little bit different when it has to do with earthquakes. Earthquakes aren't just random rumblings beneath the surface in Yellowstone. They play a crucial role in the park's unique hydrothermal activity. See it like a plumbing system. Without these occasional shakes, the small cracks and channels that feed hot water to geysers and hot springs could become clogged with mineral deposits over time. It's nature's way of keeping the taps flowing. But here's where it gets interesting. Some of these earthquakes can shake things up even more. Take, for instance, the 1959 Hebgen Lake earthquake, a whopping 7.3 magnitude event, or the 1983 Bora Peak earthquake, measuring 6.9 on the Richter scale. These seismic events caused measurable changes in famous features like the Old Faithful Geyser, showing just how interconnected Yellowstone's geology and seismic activity truly are. No doubt, earthquakes serve as nature's cartographers, helping scientists map out the subsurface geology lurking beneath Yellowstone's picturesque surface. As seismic waves ripple through both solid rock and molten magma at varying speeds, scientists can essentially peer into the Earth's depths by analyzing these waves. It's like using sonar to navigate the ocean's depths, but instead we're navigating the hidden chambers of Yellowstone's magma chamber and caldera. To aid in this geological detective work, an extensive monitoring system is in place, constantly keeping watch for any seismic activity that might reveal the secrets of Yellowstone's underground world. Now let's zoom in on June 16, 2017, at 6:48 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, a moment frozen in Yellowstone's seismic history. It was the day when the largest earthquake of the year struck, registering a magnitude of 4.36. Epicentered about 9 miles north-northwest of West Yellowstone, Montana, this quake made its presence felt in nearby towns like Gardner and West Yellowstone. But here's the twist. It wasn't an isolated event. This earthquake was just one ripple in a larger seismic storm, part of an energetic swarm that had been brewing in the area. The Maple Creek swarm made its grand entrance on June 12, 2017, and refused to bow out until October. Over those months, more than 2,475 earthquakes rocked the region, centered 6 miles north of West Yellowstone, Montana, and spreading out to the park's western edge. It's like Yellowstone was putting on its own fireworks display, albeit underground. Scientists say that earthquake swarms are like a flurry of earthquakes happening in rapid succession, like a series of fireworks lighting up the night sky. And Yellowstone is no stranger to these dramatic events. The biggest swarm on record rattled the park in 1985, with over 3,000 earthquakes shaking things up over just 3 months. The drama didn't stop there. In 2009 near Lake Village, and again in 2010, between the Old Faithful area and West Yellowstone, hundreds of quakes rumbled through the region during swarms. What causes these seismic spectacles? Scientists believe it's all about pressure, shifting and changing within the Earth's crust, driven by the movement of hydrothermal fluids beneath the surface. It's like a volcanic dance, with the ground itself moving to the rhythm of nature's beat. But here's the kicker. While we can track these swarms and study their patterns, predicting exactly when and where they'll happen is still a puzzle we're trying to solve. And now, you might be wondering, why do we base the range of normal seismic activity on data from 1995 to the present? even though Yellowstone has been monitored since the early 1970s. Well, here's the scoop. The seismic network has evolved and expanded over the years. A peek at a plot of earthquakes in Yellowstone over time shows a spike in seismic activity around 1995. But before 1995, the Yellowstone Seismic Network had fewer monitoring stations. But come 1995, there was a major upgrade, a surge in both the number of stations and the technology they wielded, including fancy new data transmission methods. This upgrade allowed them to detect and locate more earthquakes, especially those on the smaller end of the magnitude scale. So, while it may seem like seismic activity skyrocketed in 1995, it's just because they got better at spotting the quakes that were always there. Speaking of magnitudes, earthquakes below a 3.0 on the Richter scale usually fly under the radar, unnoticed by most people. It takes a magnitude 4.0 or higher to start causing some structural damage, and a magnitude 6.5 to make the ground itself rupture. While quakes above magnitude 6 are rare in Yellowstone, they have occurred in the past. Let's rewind the clock to a fateful day 57 years ago to see this play out. The day was August 17, 1959. It was a night like any other in the Madison River Canyon near Hebgen Lake, just west of Yellowstone. Around 250 visitors nestled into their sleeping bags, scattered across cabins, resorts, and campgrounds. But then, just before midnight, the earth itself seemed to groan. An earthquake rattled the canyon, sending shockwaves rippling through the sleeping campers. But the true nightmare was yet to come. A towering wall of water surged over Hebgen Dam, hurtling down the river with unstoppable force. And as if nature hadn't dealt enough devastation, a massive section of canyon wall gave way, crashing down near Rock Creek Campground, forever altering the landscape and the lives of those caught in its path. For Mike Poland, the head honcho over at the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory, these earthquakes are just Yellowstone being its unpredictable self. He's seen it all. Swarms of earthquakes rumbling through the region, shaking things up for days, weeks, and sometimes even months on end. Take last March, for example. There was a swarm brewing beneath the northern part of Yellowstone Lake, causing quite a stir for several days. Among the tremors were a few hefty 3.0 magnitude earthquakes, making their presence known with each rumble. And let's not forget the crown jewel of seismic events in 2023, the largest earthquake of the year, a star player in that very swarm. Now, fast forward to some week ago, when two 3.1 magnitude quakes decided to make a splash. But don't let the quiet day in between fool you. Poland warns that the swarm might not be over just yet. You see, a swarm isn't just a continuous barrage of shaking. It's more like a concentrated burst of seismic activity in one spot over some time. In Yellowstone, these swarms usually stick around for at least a few days, maybe even stretching into weeks. They come in waves, with moments of calm followed by sudden pulses of activity, and sometimes they can linger for months on end, gradually fading away into the background noise of Yellowstone's restless geology. In December 2023, the University of Utah's seismograph stations were buzzing with activity, picking up a total of 89 earthquakes in the Yellowstone region. These weren't isolated events either. Several of them were part of 3 separate swarms detected throughout the park, each packing its seismic punch with as many as 16 quakes in a single swarm. The thing is, when Yellowstone starts to shake, it's easy to point fingers at the mighty supervolcano that shaped the park's stunning landscapes. However, according to Poland, the park's seismic and volcanic activities are often unrelated. You see, earthquakes usually kick off along the edges of the Earth's tectonic plates, where these massive puzzle pieces grind against each other, releasing pent-up energy in the form of seismic waves. Now, while many volcanoes hang out along these plate boundaries, Yellowstone's caldera plays by its own rules. It's not situated along a typical fault line. Instead, it's a hotspot, a fiery cauldron bubbling deep beneath the Earth's surface. But don't let Yellowstone's lack of fault lines fool you. Minor fractures still lurk beneath the surface, weaving their way through the park's rugged terrain. These faults, though not always visible to the naked eye, are very much active, like the Teton Fault sneaking in from the south, or the ones darting out of the caldera area to the north, slicing through Paradise Valley and beyond. Now, most of the quakes we pick up in Yellowstone, like those two 3.1 magnitude rumblers in January, are simply the result of good old-fashioned fault line activity. It's like the Earth's way of stretching its muscles, adjusting to the pressures deep below. But when it comes to earthquake swarms, well, there's usually more to the story. You see, when water gets in on the action, things can really start shaking. Water interacting with existing faults can ramp up seismic activity, creating those mesmerizing swarms we've come to know and love. It's like adding fuel to a fire. Water lubricates the faults, making them more prone to slipping and sliding. And in Yellowstone, where hydrothermal activity is as common as Old Faithful's eruptions, it's a recipe for seismic spectacle. If earthquakes were to escalate further at Yellowstone, there are several implications to consider. Firstly, increased seismic activity could indicate the movement of magma beneath the surface, potentially leading to an eruption. While the likelihood of an eruption is still considered low, heightened earthquake activity would undoubtedly raise concerns among scientists and officials monitoring the situation. One major implication of escalating earthquakes at Yellowstone is the potential for damage to infrastructure and property in the surrounding areas. While Yellowstone itself is relatively sparsely populated, the region is home to several towns and communities that could be affected by increased seismic activity. Buildings, roads, and other critical infrastructure could be damaged or destroyed, posing significant challenges for residents and emergency responders. Another implication is the potential for disruptions to essential services, such as water and power. Earthquakes can damage pipelines, power lines, and other critical infrastructure, leading to disruptions in service that could last for days or even weeks. Ensuring the resilience of these systems and developing contingency plans for maintaining essential services would be crucial in mitigating the impact of escalating earthquakes. In addition to the immediate impacts on infrastructure and services, escalating earthquakes at Yellowstone could also have broader economic consequences. Tourism is a major industry in the region, and any disruption to Yellowstone National Park could have significant economic implications for local businesses and communities. Moreover, the potential for a large-scale eruption could have far-reaching effects on agriculture, transportation, and other sectors of the economy. Given the potential consequences of escalating earthquakes at Yellowstone, officials need to take proactive measures to mitigate the risks and ensure public safety. One key aspect of this is improving monitoring and early warning systems to detect changes in seismic activity and provide timely alerts to residents and emergency responders. This could involve deploying additional seismometers and other monitoring equipment in and around the park, as well as enhancing communication systems to ensure that warnings reach those who need them. Furthermore, officials may need to update and strengthen building codes and infrastructure standards to improve resilience to earthquakes. This could involve retrofitting older buildings to make them more resistant to seismic activity and ensuring that new construction meets rigorous safety standards. Additionally, investing in disaster preparedness and response capabilities, such as training for emergency personnel and developing evacuation plans, would be crucial in minimizing the potential impact of escalating earthquakes. While we've come a long way in understanding earthquakes, predicting exactly when and where they'll strike is still a puzzle we're trying to solve. Yellowstone, with its unique blend of geological features and volcanic activity, adds an extra layer of complexity to this puzzle. So, while we can track the number of earthquakes and study their patterns, we're still on the edge of our seats, waiting for the next surprise Yellowstone has in store. Will it be a quiet year, or will the ground beneath our feet come alive with a flurry of seismic activity? Only time will tell, keeping us on the edge of our seats, waiting for the next chapter in Yellowstone's seismic saga. What do you think about this issue? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to give us a thumbs up, drop a comment in the comment section, and turn on your notification bell to stay up to date.